Welcome. We're honored today to have Barry Spilchuk in our offices.
Thank you.
And Barry's been self-employed now for 34 years. The last 20 years, he's been self-employed as an author and a speaker. Welcome, Barry.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
Barry shared the stage with the likes of Dr. Phil, Jack Canfield from Chicken Soup for the Soul fame, and also John Gray.
From Mars and Venus.
Mars and Venus fame. Barry's also a best-selling author of 9 books, and his most recent book is called Life Goes On. So welcome, Barry.
It's so nice to be here. Thanks, Connie.
So you've had this meteoric career, and can you tell us what happened 5 years ago that kind of threw a wrench in things for you?
Yeah, as things go up and down, as life does, a few years ago, I was going to the hospital regularly, which I rarely go because I'm a guy and we don't do that. And I went for the 4th time in 2 months, and finally the doctor said, "I'm not letting you out of here till I hear what's wrong." And she said, "We think you have a touch of cancer." A touch, yes. Yeah. And then 2 days later, upstairs, once they enrolled me into Toronto General, a different doctor came in and just looked at me straight in the eye and said, "You have cancer." And the discussion went into how serious is it, and he implied I should get my affairs in order, and I tried to joke it off by saying, "I haven't had any affairs," and he goes, "That's not funny," and I went, "Yes, it is." And so that what ended up happening is that I spent a week at Toronto General, and I spent 5 weeks at Princess Margaret. And the 3rd night at Toronto General, after I got the heebie-jeebies out of my system, and said, "I'm going to be okay, I'm going to be okay," and I was trying to use positive affirmations and visualization, "I'm going to be okay," and then I started breaking it down. How, in case I do graduate, what's going to happen? What about my money? And I just had this warm feeling come over me that I'm going to be okay, because even if I do graduate, if I die, my family's going to be okay, because I had an insurance policy that I purchased years ago, and it was going to cover all of our debt. It was going to make sure that my former wife was taken care of, and all of our kids would be able to have a good, solid basis to move on, because Dad wasn't going to be there to earn an income anymore. Wow. And so that, believe it or not, was hugely comforting to me, because when you hear the words "get your affairs in order," finances is one of them. And thankfully, I had that affair in order before I got the cancer diagnosis. And it really made it a lot easier, because here I go from "get your affairs in order" to 7 months later, I'm cancer-free. Well, one of the reasons was, I'm firmly convinced, was that I didn't have to worry about the money aspect. Yeah. The money aspect was taken care of.
Now, okay, so you had that comfort knowing that your family and your children and your wife wouldn't have to bear the burden of any debt or financial hardship after your passing, if that, and thank God that didn't happen. But then you had another insurance policy that you didn't realize, and you found that out a few weeks later? Yeah,
and here's, you know, Paul Harvey used to teach the rest of the story. Here's the story behind the story. At the same time, I was going through accident, bankruptcy, cancer, divorce, employee theft, failed business, all at the same time. And so here we are dealing with this cancer burden as well. And I said we, it was because my family was going through it with me, my former wife Karen and I. She was there every day for me, just like, "I'm going to hold your hand through this no matter what." But going through the bankruptcy, because I had gone basically a year with no income. Wow. And because I was sick and I couldn't perform, and I get up on stage and I don't feel well, and we ended up having to go bankrupt. And so I'm going through the bankruptcy and wondering, where am I going to earn income? Because what ended up happening is after Connie had mentioned we were self-employed for 34 years, well, my wife worked with me in the business, and so we fell through the government cracks, and there was no government programs to help us, you know, even pay our rents and things like that. And so one of my old friends said, "Are you sure you don't have a disability policy?" And I went, I totally forgot about it, because when I bought it, the company that sold it to me, it was a life insurance company that sold me this disability policy. Yeah. And I totally forgot, because it was by this life thing. And it was like, oh. So Karen went to the condo, checked out the policy, brought it back to the hospital, and sure enough, this policy that we had purchased in 1987, wow. You know, all of a sudden in 2009, we needed. Yeah. And I phoned the company, I told them what was wrong, and they said, "Just send us a note from your doctor." And the lady at the disability company even said to me, "Hold it, you just said something about an ambulance coming to get you?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "When did the ambulance come?" And I said, "Well, December 4th of the previous year." "When were you diagnosed?" "Well, not until January 29th. And she said, the ambulance is part of it, and she even backdated the policy for me, and I got 2
Wow.
extra months of benefits. So we got an extra $5,400 of benefits just because we were able to show that. So it's really hugely important to us in the healing, and like I didn't have to worry, all I had to do was heal.
Just get better.
I just had to get better.
And thank God you did.
Yes, thank God, exactly. Yeah, and I'm so happy to be here doing this. Here we are 4 or 5 years later, when we didn't think I was going to be here at all.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story, Barry. And do you have any parting words for our viewers?
Yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I really do hope that you just get your affairs in order before you need to get your affairs in order. And one of the ways you do that is make sure you have a disability policy, critical illness, and life insurance. And if you're going to do that, you might as well talk to somebody who really cares about your well-being. I was going to say welfare, but welfare doesn't care. Your well-being, and that's Connie. So thank you so much for having me. I'm proud to share my story with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.